Hello and welcome back to We Read a Comic. That's right. I rebranded the bonus episodes a little while ago. Instead of making it confusing and calling it the all new, all different number one comics podcast bonus episode, I decided We Read a Comic sounded fun. So that's what we did. Me, myself, and Yiding, we both read a comic. We read issue number 2 of Helen of Wyndhorn. Yiding. I know that whenever we read the first issue, we both had like lots of opinions about it, really positive opinions at that. What, I guess before we get into the book or whatever, like, what expectations did you have of issue number 2? And sorry, I'm taking all the time up here. Hi, Yiding. How the hell are you?
Hi, I'm great. Yeah, thank you for asking. Thank you for asking, Dan. It's a good thing though that you renamed it, because this is not a number one. Yeah, this is
Not at all.
an issue number 2. Is this the first time you've done that, or?
Right? Yeah, I think it is. I think this is the very first time. Yeah, because I want to say I did a solo episode like once. I did one solo episode, and it was on a Twilight Zone comic, but it was the first issue. So yeah, this is the first time. First time for a second issue. I can't believe it.
Yeah. So not only does the name not work, does the old name not work, but also I think it'd be very awkward to call something the all new, all different number 2. That takes
Right?
to some very unsanitary places.
Yeah, true. In more ways than one. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Well, yeah,
Okay.
I'm stoked to talk about this book, but yeah, I wanted to know with that cliffhanger that we left off on the last issue, what expectations did you have going into this issue?
Well, like we talked about this, and like I think you actually predicted this. You said like maybe like they're just gonna like fast forward and like skip past the immediate aftermath, and sure enough, that's exactly what happened. So like I guess I was kind of expecting this just because you brought it up. But would I have done so like if you hadn't brought it up? I don't know. But yeah, no, it works great though. The way like we just like skip immediately to them eating dinner.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me of I haven't read this in like ages, so like I might have some of the details wrong. But like in King's Vision series,
Mm-hmm.
where have you read that?
Sorry, say it one more time. King's what series?
The Vision.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Do you remember? And again, I might have details wrong because it's been so long, but like there's one issue like where at the end he finds a dead dog and he
Mm-hmm.
realizes what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and then in the next issue, instead of like seeing him like confront his wife about this, like we just see them like it begins with him like at dinner, yeah,
Yes.
like, and then
Mm-hmm.
just it's
I can't remember
so
what
much
issue numbers, but yeah, exactly. Is
it's
that like
so
the
much like
penultimate issue? I can't remember. Maybe.
uh, I think it might have been like somewhere towards the middle, but yeah, I don't remember either.
Okay. Yeah.
But
Yeah,
it works
it's the
so well.
third.
Yeah, it works so well there, and it works so well here because like there's this real like tension because like as you're waiting for like the pin to drop, because
Mm-hmm.
like everyone's like behaving like orderly and like just trying to like avoid the elephant in the room, and you're just sort of like, and you're waiting to see like, well, like when this is all going to shatter, because it's going to.
Oh yeah. And of course, we see kind of like Helen's new home life, start to unravel. Of course, that they basically say that in the solicit, but like she's going down like some dark paths now. And I honestly, I mean, I should have seen the writing on the wall there, with the setup and everything. I mean, she's obviously, a little unhinged and everything in that first issue, but I was like, I didn't think she would quite go down this path. So I think like, even though that's pretty predictable, like it was a little bit of a curve for me. I was like, okay, she's like, really got some issues to deal with, like, with her dad here. There's really some stuff to unpack. Um, but yeah, I think, like you said, that's how we kind of predicted, what might happen here, that they would kind of skip over it and go into, basically kind of glaze over it and then introduce some new story elements or whatever, and then we come back to it or whatever, and then let that tension really build and everything. And I think that's it's not like a Tom King trope or anything, but I just I don't know. It felt like that was the setup we were getting. So I knew that there was no way to just immediately address this on page number one. I love the way that they did it, though. I think that it really worked for the story. It really works for like really building up that tension and everything.
Mhm.
Whenever we get into this story, and for those of you who are following along, you haven't read it yet or whatever, the first the first panel, the full page spread, is a scene from one of the books. I'm trying to remember her father's name. Is it C.K. Cole? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Okay,
CK
okay.
Cole.
C.K. Cole's book. It's like it's one of those epic, painted fantasy. It looks like it'd be the cover of the book, but I'm guessing it's like a scene or something. But yeah, we kind of open on that, and then we go more into.
I wonder if because
Mhm.
that same thing happened in the first issue where we
Yep.
opened with
Mhm.
like a scene from the story within the story,
Mhm.
and I wonder if that's going to be like a sort of like consistent like thing, like every issue is going to have like begin with an image from the this from CK Cole's books, because that is a very Tom King. Well, I'm not sure trope might not be the right word, but like that's a very
Yeah.
thing where that sort of like consistency where like each issue does like this one thing that's the same, like, and like
Mhm.
across the board like variation on the same thing.
And I love it too because it's going to read so great in trade. To break up the books because I don't know about you, but sometimes I mean I guess it's pretty mixed, but sometimes you're reading something in trade and you're like, oh, okay, well, we moved on to the next issue or whatever. And you don't even like really realize it. Like it just kind of bleeds together. But this will be like a good like benchmark for, okay, this is what was in issue one. This is what issue two. Like I like that. I think that'll read really well. Going back to what happens in the book here, as far as I'm trying to remember our characters' names because obviously we have Helen, Lilith, we have Barnabas, we have CK Cole, and all of that. But our interviewer guy and his partner here, I'm not remembering
Yeah, his
that
name
guy's
is apparently Thomas Rogers, which is like the most forgettable
name.
name
Okay,
ever.
that's why I don't remember it. Okay, good, good. I'll blame it on that. Okay, yeah, I see it signed there. Okay, good. Yeah, it's interesting how they're framing this one because obviously they introduced that's how the book basically started in the first issue, but there's some like really interesting things going on with that plot here like that I really really like a lot, and then of course intertwined like with the main story of what's going on with Helen and Lilith and everybody back at the I don't know, manor. What do you call this estate? It's like it's too big to be called like a house, so mansion. I don't know what are you supposed to call it? What's the proper term, Yiding?
Yeah, I guess it's a manor. What exactly is the difference between a manor and a mansion, though? Like I'm
Exactly.
gonna have to look that up after this after the podcast because I'm honestly not sure. Uh,
Yeah, I'm always loving these terms that like kind of mean the same thing, but once you break it down, you're like, oh no, that's only attributed to this specific thing.
oh
Love
yeah, I
things
know
like
that.
that.
It's always really, sometimes it gets very surprising because like sometimes like they're like words like their whole life you've assumed they mean the same thing, and then like some people
Mhm.
point out actually like there's a difference, and your mind is like what?
I remember being a little kid and thinking a condo and an apartment were the same thing, and I'm like, they're like in buildings and it's a thing you rent, but no, it's
Yeah,
not.
exactly, just like that.
Don't tell somebody with a condo that they have an apartment. They'll be very upset.
Yeah.
Firsthand
Okay,
experience is all I
yeah,
can say.
probably.
Yeah. Look down upon. Well, yeah, just go. I mean, look,
Oh, but one
obviously we're
thing,
gonna
on
please.
about the framing device with
Mhm.
Thomas Rogers, like that's one place that really did defy my expectations because I assumed like it would be like a consistent framing device throughout, like like each issue would just be like would have him like talking to older Lilith and use that
Mhm.
like balance that against like the the, the scenes in the past, but no, she's dead now. Surprise. Yeah, and I wonder how this is going to be handled, like in the future. Like, are we going to keep jumping ahead and ahead, or is this now going to be like a consistent setting starting from this issue? What do you think?
I don't know. I actually, now that you point that out, I'd like it if it just kept jumping ahead. I don't know if that's practical or
Yeah,
not. I'm
me
not sure
too.
how many issues this is planning on running, but 6 maybe. But yeah, I would like that a lot. I think that that would be super interesting. But yeah, maybe our story starts here. Really, I'm not too sure. Getting into that, the Thomas Rogers thing, it is very interesting because in that first issue, we're basically having him conduct those interviews and her, kind of retelling the story to him, and then that's coming across to us and everything. But now here it's like it's weird. It's like he's forgotten about it or something, and he wants to revisit it. He's trying to revisit these old interviews and everything that he recorded with her. And he's taking it to bed. He's throwing on headphones, and laying in bed with his partner and everything, and just trying to listen back. Like, I really liked this a lot. I thought that was like a really cool choice the way that they did that.
Yeah, I really like that. What he says about like now that she's dead, like he's suddenly like thinking about all this stuff over again because like
Hmm.
there's a sense that like now like this is the only like remaining like this is the only place that like her story still exists. Like like
Hmm.
he's like the last keeper of it, and how like this has gotten like rethinking all that stuff, and because like now suddenly it feels meaningful. I really enjoyed that.
I like that too because it's super practical. I mean, it's super like real world. If you think about it, and I know it's like kind of like a bummer to think about or whatever, but like we really kind of do like our stories like die with us, basically, and if you think about it, like, there might be some like really big highlights or whatever that, people might tell about us like after we're dead or whatever, maybe our kids or grandkids or whatever will be like, oh yeah, my granddad, was like I don't know, I can't think of anything cool, but like a good fisherman or something, and like that's it. Like you're reduced to that. So it is like really kind of weird to think about. Like this is like an actual like real world example, not example, the like thing that you could think about. And again, it's kind of sad. Not really anybody wants to think about that, but it definitely like shines through well in this book. I like that because her stories are like seemingly going to be so fantastical and everything. And wait a second, like nobody has any clue this happened or exists, just this one dude. Like, so yeah, I find that really interesting too.
Yeah, it's the sort of thing that like when you read it, it makes you want to start keeping a journal, or start
Right?
taking more photos
Uh-huh.
at least. But then you have to think about like, well, is that really like that takes time to do? Like is like
Hmm.
like all those accumulated minutes are going to be like turned to hours and days of your life like spent
Yep.
writing a journal. Is that really worth like is that really worth it? Or like wouldn't it be better to like just actually live your life during those times you could be writing about it? Yeah.
And that's like the advice that everybody gives, live in the moment, that's what they tell you, live in the moment. So yeah, I guess it's great making memories and all of that, but yeah, I mean, should we be so worried about passing those along to others? I mean, are people interested in them, I guess, is the real question. And I think the answer like lies somewhere in between yes and no. Yeah, I would think, if my grandfather or something left me a very detailed description of his life, maybe like a day journal or something, I doubt that I would want to sit there and read it all the time or anything like that. But maybe there are some, big key events or just, mundane, like, normal everyday living that took place in like the 50s or whatever that would be interesting to me. So, yeah, I'm not too sure like
Yeah.
what the answer is, but maybe it just is somewhere in between. That kind of does like, and I don't mean to sidetrack this whole thing with that comment, but does remind me of something that happened like a few years ago. My grandmother was in like hospice care and passing away from cancer, and she had lived like a great long life and everything, but my wife spent a good amount of time with her, because I was working a lot and everything. My wife was staying at home, so she spent a good amount of time with my grandmother in that hospice care, and was just like, she would bring her phone with her and she would be like, hey, tell me a story of like how you and your husband met, or whatever, and just kind of record like like a 30 minutes of her talking, so that way we did have those stories, which was actually really cool. So yeah, I don't know, again, I don't know if that's for everybody. Maybe sometimes that stuff's too sad to think about or whatever, but sometimes it's a cool like reminder. But I do love the way that it's done in this book a lot.
Wow. Yeah. That's you must like feel so. I don't know how you feel about it, but like it must be so like Oh, I don't have words for that. Wow. Yeah. Jeez.
Right? It is. It's
Who-
it's like a very
Was that your
interesting
wife's
thing.
idea? Or
Yeah, it sure was. Yeah. Mhm.
well, that's good for her. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, yeah, was pretty cool to kind of have those stories there. For those who don't know or whatever. But yeah, going back to this again, like super interesting on the framing of the story here. Helen has now jumping back into I don't know the A plot. I guess we could call it the main story here. Helen's like hitting like this depression kind of like it's almost like oozing off the page there. She just doesn't really feel good about the situation that she's in, about being trapped inside, about uh you know having to do like lessons and stuff like that, which are kind of like her schooling or whatever that Lilith is helping there with and everything. And she like really is kind of bringing up her father a lot. And,
Yeah. She's
and
clearly very haunted
mhm,
by like the hole that he's left in her life.
mhm,
Yeah. I mean, I guess there's a sense of she's like she's not she I get the sense that she's not sure what to make of her own relationship with her dad,
yeah.
in the sense that she clearly loves him dearly or loved him dearly, and admired him deeply in her own way. At the same time, like there is a sense of that he wasn't perhaps like the best father, and like I
Mhm.
think she's kind of dealing with that contradiction or that dichotomy, I guess.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, and going back to like his, I don't know, his relationship with her and all of that, like we kind of see some similarities with what's going on with her grandfather. It's this kind of like weird, like hands off approach, but when it comes down to adventure, when it comes down to the big moments in life, like they're there for that. But the everyday, like it's kind of hands off or whatever. It's a little different. So uh I appreciate how Tom King like ties that back in, and shows those similarities there. Uh, a big point in the book, and kind of like I guess what it's like building up towards in the middle here is Helen, feels trapped in this house at this point. We're only at the beginning of the second issue, and like we kind of feel it for her. Like she doesn't want to be like caged up. It's not for her. She's like an adventurer, she's an explorer, she's crazy, she's out day drinking and smoking and all this stuff. She can't just be kept up in a house all the time like learning literature and stuff like that. So
Yeah, yeah.
uh, she's asking Lilith if she can take her studies outside, and they do. And yeah, that's when some weird stuff starts happening.
Mhm.
um
It does make me, just jumping ahead a bit, but it does
please, yeah.
make me very curious about what's gonna happen next, just
Hmm.
because now at the end, she's finally escaping the house. She's finally
Yep.
going off on her big adventure with her granddad.
Hmm.
And there's a question of is this gonna be good for her or not? Is this gonna be about her fulfilling her her life's calling, finding a real purpose? Is that what the adventure is gonna do? Or is it just gonna sort of reinforce her issues in a way, her problems?
Hmm. Yeah, I'm with you because it's like at this point, I don't really know how to help Helen. I don't know if like I was the person there. Like I'm not sure what's best for her. I don't know what to do for her. Obviously, she's got to do some grieving and process the loss of her dad. Uh, she's got to deal with her overabundance, problems that she's dealing with too. But I don't know how you get her to that point. um, I I truthfully don't feel like it's something that her grandfather's really going to be able to do for her. But then again, I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I feel like we're at like this weird point in the story where it could go like anywhere. Uh, Getting back to
Mhm.
like the narrative part. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying definitely. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Getting back to like the narrative part. Basically, it reaches this point where, or of course, I guess we skipped over something really important here. Helen and Lilith run into Barnabas outside, and he's feeding this little creature. And Getting, if you can pronounce this, please feel free. I'm gonna go with Flyun. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's how I
Okay.
that's what I went with. Flyun.
Okay, cool. Okay, cool, cool.
And it is adorable. It
It
is an
really
amazing
is.
design. Like the
It's
perfect
like
blend
reminding
of
me of
like
something. I don't know what, but
yeah, like it looks like half a dozen different animals at once, you know?
yeah.
uh, and it's like it's a perfect blend of like sort of like cute, but also
Hmm.
like very surreal.
Hmm. Well, it's cute, but like it's a baby, so I mean, it's got those horns, those kind of like goat type of horns. So, what's it going to be like when it grows up? You know,
Oh yeah,
a
that's a
little
great point.
scarier,
That's a great
maybe.
point.
I'm not sure, but yeah, it does. It kind of gives me vibes. Now, I've never been like a huge, excuse me, like Pokemon person or anything, but there is a character that it's giving me vibes of, and I think its name is Eevee or Eve or something. But um, yeah, it kind of looks like that, but with like horns, but it's got some other stuff going on too. It's a really cool design or a really cool creature. And yeah, the way that Bill Quist, I'll never be able to
I
pronounce her
looked
name.
this up because I felt bad about how last time we were kind of just like messing everything up. It is apparently Bill, yeah, Bill Queese Evely. Yeah.
Belquise
Like,
Everly. Okay, well, thank you so much for clearing that up. I hate ruining people's names too, but as you know, I do every time I say anyone's name. Um, but yeah,
but okay,
she's
but again,
just
you know, this is like, you know, we're neither of us. I assume neither of us are actually like. I forget what language it's supposed to be. Is it Spanish or Portuguese or what? Shoot. See, even after doing the research, I'm making a fool of myself. But
sorry.
Whatever language is, I'm assuming neither of us are native speakers, so we're still probably like, you know, like not quite getting it right. But yeah, okay. Yeah.
Understood. Hey, well, I appreciate you doing the work, so we don't sound ridiculous. But yeah, she's just got this delicate balance of the way she's introducing this character and the way, even whenever we have some more tight, like closer up panels of Barnabas feeding the, I don't know, the little flyun here, flyun. Uh, I really appreciate this. I think this is, I don't know, one of my favorite parts of this issue so far is this creature here. It just looks wonderful. The greenery in the scenes look really wonderful too. They're like these crazy like twisting vines and maybe like, I don't know, herbs and stuff like coming out of the ground, but they stop at a certain point. Like, you know, it's not overgrown all over the place. I don't know. It's very interesting. It looks really cool. I'm really digging what they have going on around the estate of Wyndhorn here.
Yeah, it almost looks like something you'd expect to see on an alien planet. You know, like
Yeah,
just there's
exactly.
just this sense of like this dreamlike quality to it.
Hmm. Yeah, really, really nice art in this. So again, of course, from there, it reaches that point where basically Helen is, you know, she's having this huge problem with the loss of her father. She's having problems with being trapped up in this house and everything. Um, Lilith goes to talk to Barnabas and tries to talk about some of Helen's problems and trying to figure out what she can do about them. Barnabas is not having it at all. He's very, very upset.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I wonder about him. Like, I'm starting to get a sense that maybe like he's not quite human.
mhm, mhm.
I mean, maybe. I mean, I'm not. He could still very well just be like a really weird dude. But like, I'm getting the sense
Very.
that like he's yeah, like that maybe he's actually from like this fantasy world. Are you getting that
Mhm.
vibe?
Yeah, there's definitely something like otherworldly about him. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but he's an odd character.
Yeah, and he know, but and he's also, but also, that first scene, like because we didn't actually really meet him in the last issue. Like,
Mhm,
you know, he only shows up at the very end. Before that, he's just like a vague figure. So like this is our first real introduction to him, and I feel like King like and Evelyn like they do such a great job like introducing him like in that very first scene at the dinner table where
mhm,
he's just like
mhm.
he just suddenly bangs the table. You know? Yeah, uh, it's just yeah because like okay it's like this is our first introduction to him, and like you know it it really draws us into him because like he's simultaneously like very mysterious and weird,
Mhm.
but at the same time in an entertaining way, you know. So like he's silent, he's like the mystery draws us in, and at the same time we're being told like, and he's amusing to see in action, you know, he's entertaining to watch. Yeah.
Yeah, he really is. One of the questions that I kind of wanted to ask you about it was, and I don't know, maybe it's more of a statement, but I'd like to hear what you think is, for some reason or another, Barnabas, her grandfather and Helen here, and I guess seemingly Helen's dad too, are suppressing something with a lot of alcohol. Like that's like, Lilith brings it up, and whenever it's discussed, to Barnabas and everything, he's like, I did the same thing when I was that age. Like I turned out perfectly fine. Like you don't need to worry about it and everything. Like what is alcoholism just like a huge trait in this family? Is something else going on? Like I'm not sure like where they're going with that, but they're definitely going somewhere with it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, well, then this is also an aspect that makes me wonder about who Barnabas is, because like, you know, this whole thing about like drinking a lot, like that would fit if he was like actually like some like otherworldly fantasy barbarian, you know, because like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's what like guys like Conan do. I think they do. I've never
Right.
actually read many Conan stories, but you know, they like that's how I perhaps ignorantly envisioned them. You know, like they're going to like the taverns and like drinking lots of ale. You know.
Yeah, I mean they've got that like I don't know what you call it, like Viking like stereotype, like that kind of thing you get from Aquaman and Thor and stuff too.
Oh yeah, yeah, or Marvel's Hercules, especially. Yeah.
Yeah, Hercules, yeah, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. So again, like we reach that point. We get back into, it dips into just a second there of now I'm gonna forget. You completely nailed the nail on the head. I don't know how that's you. Wow, I can't talk. If that's how you're supposed to express that term there or not, but our writer character, the guy that's interviewed Lilith there, uh, Robert Thomas, no Thomas Robert, I don't know, whatever
Thomas
his name was.
Thomas Rogers, the
Rogers,
most
right?
forgettable name in the
Man,
world. Yeah.
I'll never remember it. Like I could like maybe I should put a little sticky note up here to remember his name. But yeah, we kind of get back to him, and he's laying in his bed with his partner there, and then he's like I said, he puts on those headphones to kind of go to bed. So he's listening to the story again, and it's kind of like it's starting to like consume his life. It seems like it's starting to become like a really important thing that's going on here. And from there, oh, you still with me?
I'm here. Yeah,
Okay, sorry,
I'm here.
screen froze up for one sec. Yeah, so from there we get this full page spread of Helen just like completely wasted, holding a sword, and she's standing on all kinds of armor and swords and stuff. I love this page. It's really cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's so well designed, and like
Hmm.
with all the swords sort of pointing at her, they're like,
Yeah,
you know, in the background. Yeah, that's such a great choice.
yeah, it really is. Really, really cool stuff. I love that a lot. Of course, we've already mentioned it multiple times, but the artwork is like such a hero in this book. I love Tom King's writing too. Like, I'm not a Tom King hater. I know some people can be or whatever. I don't know how. Whenever stuff like the Vision story and all of that, but either way, uh, this is just he's really excelling on this. Really good stuff. And basically we reach that point. Helen has been drinking heavily again, and we go a couple of scenes later, because from there it's not much to talk about, but
Oh, one
more
thing I do
nuance
want
in
to
the.
point out.
Yeah, please. Mhm.
Okay, there's one panel that really sticks out to me. In the right after that splash page of her holding the sword. Uh, in the so ri- in the on the page right after that. Okay, in that one panel, we have Joseph talking. He says, "God's help us."
Mhm.
Uh, and
Oh,
that
I
really
didn't
sticks.
notice that actually. I
Yeah,
did not
that
notice
really
that.
sticks out to me because hey, I didn't notice that first either because like I read so many fantasy novels that like it,
Uh-huh.
it didn't even jump out to me at first, but then like after a second it really registered to me because like that's fantasy novel talk. You know, people in the real world don't say God, they say God help us. You know,
Right?
singular. Yeah. So
Oh,
that's a clue there, right? That's a clue. That's a clue. He's from there. I'm guessing Joseph is from that other world.
Huh. Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about talking about comics with somebody else, because you could read a comic. Like, I try my best, if I'm going to talk about a comic, to read it more than once, just so I have, like a better understanding of it or whatever. But, I read this a few times, and like that's something I didn't pick up on. Like, I always love hearing what other people pick up on, because it's like it offers you like a completely different perspective, something that, didn't uh stand out to you, or possibly you just didn't even notice or whatever. So yeah, that's cool. That's interesting. That does kind of like change the tone a little bit, if that means something, or quite a lot. So yeah, I totally dig that. That's really cool. I'm glad you picked up on that.
Yeah, I agree. Getting someone else's perspective always like enriches your own
Yeah, right.
your own understanding of a book.
Yeah, I always try to tell everybody, especially for people who don't like specific types of things or think they don't or whatever. When I started this podcast with my co-host Bob, Bob was like so big into. He was like, I only like Marvel and DC. I don't like independent comics, and I don't like horror books. Every single like we like usually, I mean, we don't give like, numbered reviews or star reviews or anything like that. It's more like, would you read the next issue type of reviews. But it's like every single time we do an indie book, every single time we do a horror book, Bob loves it. He's like, oh yeah, I totally recommend this. And I'm like, Bob, do you not remember when you said, I don't like horror, I don't like independent books? Like, yeah, I mean, it really is. It's like getting a different perspective on things, and like opening your eyes to things that you wouldn't notice, or didn't know you liked or whatever. Like, just, yeah, it really does enrich the whole process. And having community around something as well. I have plenty of people to talk to about comic books, but maybe in some areas you don't or whatever. And maybe you're having to read things online, you don't even have like a local comic book shop to go to or something, and that sucks. But the community aspect of reading comics is really, really cool. So I don't know what I'm saying. Come engage with us. If you don't have anybody to talk to, drop us a line. Like, we'd love to talk about comics with you. Hit up Reddit forums, do whatever you got to do. But there's people out there to talk to you about that stuff if you don't have like anybody right next to you. So
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I used to, for a number of years, I lived in China.
oh, okay.
Yeah, so at that time, I'm back in the U.S. now, but like at that
Mhm.
time, like there was absolutely nobody like to talk to about American comics, you know? Yeah,
Yeah.
and it definitely changes things. Not necessarily for the worse, to be honest. Like there is
Mhm.
that sense of like your opinions now are now like your pure opinions. You know, it's like it's not being like influenced like by like
Mhm.
other people. But yeah, no, like you do definitely miss that sense of like just that like ability to like yeah, when you talk about it, like you actually enjoy it more because like you're seeing it from new angles and stuff. Like
Mhm.
what you were saying about you and Bob, like that's great. It's like I feel like sometimes like, it's so great to get a fresh perspective on something, just because like your own opinions like tends to get a bit jaded sometimes,
Yeah.
and then you
Well,
get
I mean,
someone
you're
else like
completely right about that.
and then someone else sees it for the first time, and like you realize, oh yeah, that's why I love this stuff. You know?
Mhm. One of the, and I won't stay on this too long, but one of the things that I absolutely love the most, since I started doing this, is I don't know if you've ever been a fan of Dynamite comics, or if you've ever read Dynamite. I personally have always been in the camp of like, oh, those are like TNA books, that's like Vampirella stuff I'm not the slightest bit interested in. Um, we've only done a few, I think. I'm trying to remember exactly what we've done, but one of the more recent ones was Elvira meets H.P. Lovecraft. And like Bob and I were both like, this is going to be the dumbest book in the entire world. Why Elvira meeting H.P. Lovecraft? This was like actually like if I could give a star like star reviews, like this was like a 10 out of 10. The book was so ridiculously good, so well written. The plot was so cool, and they even address like the problems with H.P. Lovecraft like in the book, which is really fun. The art was like outstanding, like it was so good. And then just today we did David Propose's Space Ghost #1 that just came out. Like 10 out of 10. It was such a good book. And I'm like, dude, Dynamite, like in my mind, I'm like, Dynamite sucks. I'd never read anything from them. And like every time I'm like proven completely wrong. Like, I'm like, no, this is better than like anything I've read from Marvel or DC in like over a year. Like it's so good. So it's so
Wow.
weird. Like,
Wow.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just weird because yeah, in your mind you get these opinions. You're like, where did that even come from? Like,
Yeah. It's always great when you get like a pleasant surprise like that, like
mhm.
where like you're expecting the worst, and then it's the opposite of that. Yeah, that's always great. Yeah.
Yeah, always really cool. Well, look, let's get into. I can't remember exactly where I left off because we did have that little glitch in there. But basically, we're towards the end of the book here, and
Yeah, we're
after
at idea now.
yeah, right. Like we've already kind of gone over how Lilith went to Barnabas, talked to him about Helen drinking too heavily, and then Helen drinks heavily again, and then we get to the part where Barnabas kind of returns, like because for a while after he talked to Lilith and told her to get out and everything, he was kind of like secluded from them. But then he starts coming to dinner again, and then like seemingly out of nowhere, he invites Helen to help him return the flume, flume, I don't know, to its mother in the Steel Mountains, and it's like, holy shit! Wait a second, now she's about to go on this epic adventure with her granddad. Like the tone of this book is about to change a lot.
No, yeah, definitely. Or maybe not,
Yeah.
because so far we're getting it from Lilith's point of view.
Hmm.
So if Lilith's not going on the adventure,
Hmm.
maybe maybe next issue is just going to be them coming back from it, and Lilith like trying to Lilith wondering like, oh, like what happened to them, and like trying to figure out like what's going on now, like trying to like
Damn, you're right. I
fill
didn't
in the
even think
mystery.
about that. Oh God, yeah. I mean, you're right. You're right. Look, Tom King loves a slow burn, so yeah. I mean, I didn't even consider that, but yeah, there's a strong possibility that we don't get to see any of this adventure or really even hear anything about it for a while. Maybe the two just, for all we know, could have just like slipped into the forest and just drank for like a couple of days. Oh God, yeah, anything could happen here.
Yeah,
Yeah, this
I'm
is
picturing
left
like
on the.
this thing, or like they come back like all ragged and like worn out, like, and like there's clearly like maybe like venom burn marks or whatever on like on their skin, on their skin, and like where they've clearly been through like a hell of a lot, but Lilith
Mhm.
has no idea what any of it is, and she's just trying to like get answers. I can totally picture that.
Oh man, yeah. Well, yeah. Again, see the community aspect of comic books just makes them so much better because I had a thought in my head and I love how you subverted it. That's really cool. I hope that this goes all over the place. This is cool. Yeah, man, that about wraps up the book. I'm I will say this, I was excited for issue number 2. I was excited to dip back into this world and see what happens and everything. I'm like way more excited for issue number 3 now than I was even for issue number 2. Like I'm stoked about this. I think this could go some really cool places or not.
Well, I'm sure it'll be cool. Like, it might
Yeah.
not be where do we expect it to go, but yeah, I'm
Mhm.
sure it's going to be delightful. Yeah. I
Yeah.
do I do wonder if okay, the scene where she picks up the sword,
Mhm.
I do wonder if that's sort of like there's like some kind of like magical or mystical import in that. And
Mhm.
maybe that's why Barnabas is now taking her along. He's like, now that she's picked up the sword or something, like she's opened something up magically speaking, or
Mhm.
attached herself to something magically speaking, and now so he has to like sort of take it to the next step.
I like that. That like it's something about it is important to her becoming who she is. Because yeah, I mean, look at the regular A cover. I mean, it has Helen holding a sword. It's got like a big sword in the backdrop behind her and everything. Obviously, a sword, is going to be of some importance, or at least I don't know, important imagery or something in the book. So I always lean on this, and tell me what you think because I try my best to step away from this anytime I'm like involved in a movie, a comic book, a book, whatever it is. I always immediately go to the really super unreliable narrator, and it's like either everything's all in their head or like there's some mental illness or something going on, and like I'm thinking like, okay, does none of this stuff really happen at all? And they're just like super wasted all the time. And in her head, when she's standing there drunk holding the sword, and she's like, I'm a barbarian now. Like she's going on some magical adventure that she's gonna tell people she went on later, but really she was just like super wasted. Like, crossed with some mental illness. I don't know.
I mean, I feel like since it's told from Lilith's point of view, like I think that's less likely because she's not wasted at all.
Yeah, true.
Yeah. No, I get what you mean. Yeah, that's always an interesting question. Yeah.
Right. Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know about you. I really liked the second issue. I thought it was done really well. Of course, the art beautiful. It always sucks whenever you have like a really well written book, but the art is so good that like you just want to be like, yeah. I mean, even if you're not interested in the story, just open the book up and flip through the pages because it's really good. Yeah, but the art's outstanding in this, and the story is really a lot of fun too. And it's like I love the slow burn here. I love how Tom King is not revealing too much at all, and we have to guess along the way. I really like it, and I will definitely be returning for the third issue.
Definitely, and I can't wait to see Evely draw, more of the. I guess we don't know what it's called, like the other world. Like I can't wait to see her draw it because you just know it is going to look amazing.
Yeah, definitely. I'm with you. I can't wait to bust open that door and really expand on what's going on there. I'm hoping we get a grandfather granddaughter road trip adventure in this third issue, but yeah, I'm starting to think we might not get very much of that. But hey, whatever happens, I'm along the ride for. I can't wait to check it out, and I can't wait to check out issue number 3 and break it down with you again, Yiding, because this has been a lot of fun.
Any predictions about it?
I'm so unsure. I think
you're right. You're right the first time. You're right,
right,
about
right.
issue number 2. You're right on money there. So
yeah, you never know. You never know. I want to say that I feel like we're gonna go into. It's gonna be, I don't know, 1/4 of their adventure. Of what Helen has told Lilith, and then she's kind of retelling here in the way the book does, and we get a little bit of that intertwined with what's going on back at the house, estate, manor, whatever the hell I'm supposed to call it, with Lilith, and I can't remember the other character's name, but the kind of housekeeper guy,
Joseph.
Joseph. Okay. Yes. Sorry, Joseph. Yes. I don't know. I feel like maybe we're gonna expand a little bit on what those two have going on alone in the house. Maybe they're obviously trying to explore to figure out where this wine came from or where Helen's hiding it and all of that. So maybe they're gonna find some crazy secrets there in the house. I don't know. That's kind of what I predict is gonna happen.
Oh, that's a good point. I hadn't considered that. Yeah, maybe they'll have their own little weird adventure inside the
right.
the manor. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
My one prediction is that, like, by going on this big adventure with her granddad, Helen is going to come to a better standing about her father and like the ghosts that haunt him, and or however you want to put it, and through that maybe get some closure on their relationship.
I'd like that. That would be really good if they were able to, really kind of talk out some stuff like that. I think that would be really cool. I'm wondering how much of that might go on, but yeah, you're right. That would be really interesting, a really interesting dynamic for those two. They're both very strong-willed, like strong-headed people. I'd love to see their conversations and how that goes and how much he's willing to let his guard down to talk to his granddaughter and everything. Yeah, that would be really fantastic.
Yeah, and I think one thing you mentioned here that like I didn't really think about, but now that you mention it, like I can see it. There's definitely this like parallel between her relationship with her granddad and her relationship with her dad. Is like, because like in both cases, like, what the real bond there seems to be the adventure. In because like when she's thinking about her dad, like, her fondness for him is all about like, oh, their wild lifestyle, like
Hmm. Hmm.
living like that sort of like migratory life, like going from one place to the next, like sleeping in the backs of box cars or whatever they were doing.
Yeah.
So it's just like, so, and here's the same thing, like, like with her granddad, like they're not like really that close, like on a day-to-day basis, like, like
Hmm.
he's like kind of just stays away from her, like, but then like when they're going on the adventure, it's the two of them. That's the linking element.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, I think there's definitely some interesting stuff coming up in this third issue. I think that, I don't know, here's my real prediction. I think that we're probably both right on some things, and I think that they're going to throw us some insane curveballs on some of it too. Like that's kind of what I see happening. I think Tom King is way too smart for us to go into it knowing exactly what's going to happen. But we're going to see. We're going to find out in the next issue. And I do want to look really quick while before we wrap up when that next issue drops, just so I have it in front of me. But yeah, I mean, of course, usually they're a month apart, but June 19th is when we get the next issue. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. I know it's on my pull list, so I'll be picking it up in my local shop. But yeah, excited to break down this third issue with you and see where it goes from there.
Oh yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And maybe we'll finally be able to pronounce Emily's name correctly.
Yeah, I'll have to leave myself a reminder, like put a little thing in my calendar on June 19th. Make sure you check out an interview with her, something. That's something I always try to do before I have a guest on too, like a comic book creator on. It's like, I'm like, let me go search YouTube and see if they set their name somewhere else where I could pick up. I just did Nikesh Shukla on, he's attached to the most recent episode that we did, and he's the writer of Spider-Man India. And fantastic interview. Like, guy was really, really cool. But I was like shaking in my boots because I do interviews all the time. This guy has done TED Talks. He declined an award from the Queen of England because he's
Oh
like
wow.
that cool. He was like, I can't rail against the establishment and then accept an award from them, which was really cool. But I was like, I sat there for like, I don't know, what seemed like hours beforehand, just like, how do I pronounce this name? How do I pronounce it? Because he's an Indian writer living in England, and I'm like, I can't even come close on anything. But yeah, it might be Nikesh Shukla. That's what I'm gonna go with. But yeah, we're gonna have to do our homework, make sure we can say her name correctly before the next issue as well.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah.
That's a
Cool.
wrap.
Yeah, that does it. I'll talk to you next time about this book. Thank you for joining me.